Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today for Thursday, April 17th. It's Alissa Coram here. And we saw a mixed day led by small caps in this shortened holiday week. Last trading day of the week here ahead of the Good Friday holiday. And joining me now to break down the action that unfolded this week is my colleague, Ken Shreve. Ken, what do you have for us today?
Well, not such a great close for the market, Ali, but on the final trading day of the week ahead of the Good Friday holiday. Found three stocks that look interesting here. Let's take a look at Uber. UBER is the symbol there. Also, a recent IPO that has broken out powerfully and is holding gains, like this type of price action. ServiceTitan, TTAN. And then finally, medical technology firm Penumbra, PEN.
All right, three good ones to check in on there. We will take a closer look at those stocks after we check out the major indexes with the Nasdaq down 0.3% by the end of the day. The S&P 500 was sorry, 0.1%, down 0.1%. The S&P 500 was up 0.1% on the day. The Dow took a big hit, UNH to blame there, with the Dow down about 1.3% on the day, and the Russell 2000 up about 0.8% or so headed into the final stretch of the trading day there. But we got a fade on this holiday Friday. And Ken, the S&P 500 at one point today was up about 1%. So a big fade here. But if we're looking for a 1% plus gain in volume heavier than the prior session, this isn't quite the positioning or the conditions that get us feeling really bullish. So, kind of, especially ahead of a 3-day weekend. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. It was again the S&P 500 closed off highs today, but not such a bad day. We had you can see that sellers came into the market just be with a little more than an hour left in the session, and indexes were never really able to recover. Volume on the NYSE was tracking higher for a good portion of Thursday's session, but was kind of trailing off as the session wore on. Not surprising ahead of the
Yeah.
market being closed tomorrow. So we're 9 days into a rally attempt. We had a nice explosive gain for the S&P 500 almost a week ago on Friday, and you see where the S&P is trading in relation to Friday's big percentage gain. It's kind of holding pretty well here. So we're still optimistic that we could get some sort of confirmed tradable rally here, maybe up to the 5,500 level. We'll have to see. So on the watch still for a follow through day, but understanding that market conditions are still quite risky out there.
No doubt. And I totally agree with you. 5,500 along from that Wednesday high from the previous week. That was that big 90-day pause reaction day. That high is pretty critical, as well as a 21-day line. So we have a lot of levels that coincide here, Ken, and that at least in the short term would give us, I think, a little bit more confidence to start wading back in. In addition to, we want to see the stocks underneath the surface acting right. We are seeing a number of setups out there, which is encouraging, but can we get more breakouts, and can those breakouts follow through is the question.
Yeah, and can we stop seeing utilities and consumer staple stocks leading the market? I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just the market's defensive nature right now.
Vibe.
Like you said, a
Yeah.
few some growth stocks setting up in some pretty good bases, but almost seems to be the exception and not the rule at this point. That could change, but we're still seeing the market trade very defensively again with utilities and consumer staple stocks, outperforming.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's also, so we looked at the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, similar action in terms of that brick wall coinciding with the 21-day, that prior Wednesday high. Roughly around 17,200 is what we're looking at there. And then I think the Dow is worth taking a second here to explain the underperformance today. Ken, UNH definitely a drag on the Dow.
Yeah, and this is interesting because United Health Group had rallied really nicely with a lot of health insurers not that long ago when it became clear that Medicare was going to get the payments were going to be increased quite a bit, more than double what they were for 2026. So that's why you had this big move for United Health above its 200-day moving average. And then today it was just an earnings report that clearly caught the market off guard. They're just talking about higher expenses and really not really seeing an improving expense environment going forward. So they lowered their outlook. Sometimes earnings reports catch the market off guard, and this one clearly caught the market off guard because this one had been rallying. There had been some good volume behind the up days, but sometimes a company's going to release a clunker that catches the market off guard. And when you see a stock down 22% in huge volume, closing near lows, this was unexpected.
Quite disappointing there, no doubt. And then a quick look at IWM, which represents the small caps. Even though we did get a little bit of outperformance here today, still a lot of work, a very clearly established downtrend that we have for the Russell here. And whereas the Nasdaq and S&P 500 have been butting their heads up against that 21-day line, the green line that we follow very closely, this hasn't even come up to that level yet. So very beaten down here, and a lot of struggles remain in small cap land.
Yeah, I got some outperformance from the Russell 2000 today. That was mostly because of Hertz. HTZ had a nice percentage gain today. I think news came out within the past day or two that Bill Ackman has built a position in this company. That's why shares soared yesterday, and it took off again today. So this is a member of the Russell 2000, and probably a big reason why the index outperformed. And the S&P 500 also performed better than the Nasdaq and the Dow today because of Eli Lilly, which had a really nice day. A good example of how a stock can gap up and run into some resistance levels here. That 50-day, that 200-day moving average. This is a situation that a lot of stocks find themselves in, trying to rally off lows, but running into key resistance levels. But good day overall for Lilly. Closed a little bit off highs, but they've got pretty good results so far for this oral weight loss pill that they're going to try to get approval, for weight loss later this year. And it was a test done with type 2 diabetics. So not only were they able to lower blood sugar, but also lose some weight with this oral daily pill. So not a weekly injection like
Hmm.
Novo
Hmm.
Nordisk's Ozempic. This is a daily pill, not approved yet, but
Right.
pretty good trial results.
Yeah, and you have others in the industry testing out shot and pill combos, all sorts of innovations in this weight loss drug space. So, a step in the right direction here for Eli Lilly, which has been pretty beaten down, very choppy, has underperformed for a number of months here, Ken, maybe even going back almost a year. It peaked last August, so it really has been underperforming since. Maybe this is the catalyst that the stock needed to get back on track, but it looks like it needs perhaps a little bit more repair work to do before it's something that we would be interested in from a technical standpoint.
Well, it's like what David Ryan talks about when he's on IBD Live as our Tuesday regular guest. Anytime he sees a big move, you want to see the stock kind of hold those gains, and then what he says just kind of drift and maybe drift lower. So if Lilly can hold on to the big gains made today and ultimately find a new home above its 50 and 200-day moving average, that still could be a tall order, but that would be a sign of strength and support that we'd be looking for to possibly initiate a position. But you're right, it's still a little early right now. We'll see if it can show strength and support after today's big move.
Okay. Let's take a look at some sectors of note. You mentioned the defensive vibe of the market here, and that definitely can be seen in something like the consumer staples ETF here, XLP, outperforming in a considerable way today, can up 2.2%. So if we know that bull markets are driven by other sectors of the market, whereas your defensive areas are not typically the leaders in times of market strength. The fact that we're continuing to see the defensive areas as your signs of life out there in the market underscores the kind of conditions that we're in.
Yeah, and again, we're starting to see some growth stocks and some former leaders from last year that are setting up okay and are making a case that they, could be leaders again. But this has been a pretty steady story that consumer staple stocks, utility stocks, some healthcare, typically defensive areas of the market, makes sense that they're leading right now because we are, we the market has come off lows, but we are still in a correction here, and there's a lot of worry warts in the market. We've had tariff headlines kind of move to the back burner, at least for the past couple of days, and we'll see what next week brings. Possible we'll see some more headlines on the tariff front.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll be positive, and the market will choose to react positively. But so many cross currents out there, Ali, that we've talked a lot about.
Yeah.
The Fed and inflation and just so many different things. And we've got earnings season starting up, and Nvidia. The news
Yes.
yesterday, they're going to have to take a $5.5 billion charge because these H20 chips are just not going to be the revenue driver that they thought they might be. So, still some real challenges on first quarter earnings season and what companies are going to
Mhm.
say about demand for the rest of the year. Seems like the CEOs are going to be just as uncertain as Jerome Powell is in terms of what effects these tariffs are going to have. So you know just massive amounts of uncertainty out there. So you see the defensive stocks leading, and growth in investors just typically staying in cash and getting out of the market's way until we see signs that the market is ready to move meaningfully higher.
Very well said, Ken. And you also mentioned utilities. We'll just briefly show that as well, underscoring the same concept here of defense. But like you said, pockets of strength and earnings season, I think, will be key for what are going to be the leaders in this time of uncertainty. We'll check in on Netflix after we look at our three stocks that we wanted to highlight today. So let's go to them, including Uber here, up 3% on the day. Some nice outperformance over the last couple of sessions, now getting above its 50-day line. Ken, this is also on my list. And I think if the market were in a little bit better shape, maybe I would be in this stock right now. But I think early next week, this could be on the table potentially for some investors who do like those early entries with this stock. Now back above that 10-week line, and that relative strength has been improving for months. And this is a growth story here for Uber.
No doubt about it. They're still, a big ride-sharing company, but DoorDash has been doing very well. Uber Eats is a meaningful revenue contributor at this time, and Uber is also big into autonomous driving. Not nearly where Google's Waymo unit is at, but they have big plans in autonomous driving. Uber is interesting. If you go back to the daily chart here, first of all, this is a company with outstanding fundamentals. You can see it's got a huge market cap, but top line growth has been pretty impressive in recent quarters. If we were in a confirmed uptrend and
Right.
we felt like the market tide was flowing positive, this could have been a buy signal today, sort of breaking out of a downtrend. Volume rose a little bit from Wednesday, but it's been below average over the past several days. It did start when it hit near 60. It rallied in heavy volume. So I think this one still has a work. And Dara Khosrowshahi is a very respected CEO, and he's been running the show here for quite some time. So this is one. If you look at the weekly chart, it hasn't been a picture of market leadership. This has been kind of a long sideways mover. But when we're looking at stocks that at least have the potential to lead this
Mhm.
year, I think this one is worth watching, especially as it tries to break out of a downtrend here.
Totally agree, Ken. Next on the list is a recent IPO, and that's ServiceTitan TTAN with a major breakout this week. Shares up almost 19% on the week, and really steady declines throughout the last 4+ days and even last week as well, as it forged that right side of this double bottom base here. So, an early entry when the stock broke out of a downtrend, cleared that century mark at 100, and a powerful breakout this week above 107.
Yeah, this is what a stock under accumulation looks like, and it's quite ironic because the IPO market has really seized up. There's just a lot of companies that don't want to come public in this environment, and so it's been very very slow going in the IPO market. So it's a bit ironic that Service Titan not only broke out of an IPO base here on no news, but it has held gains quite well. So this is an example of stock that it's too late to buy. It's up
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, up 5 days in a row, sharply, a huge weekly gain. But this is a good one for the watch list. Still bleeding a lot of red ink, but you can see revenue growth. For the January ended quarter, accelerated nicely, up 29% compared to 24% growth in the prior quarter. See growth expected to slow here a little bit. So this is a name we're going to probably do a little more work on. We like to, pay attention to new issues when the market is trying to bottom. And this is just an example of, looking at a stock and trying to get it in the early stages of a move. So we'll see how Service Titan digests gains from here.
Right.
And again, if they can just kind of drift, move sideways, hold on to some of these big gains, that would be constructive price action, and
Mhm.
could usher in a new entry here. So uh, personally, just want to figure out. It doesn't seem like they're close to profitability yet. And the other thing I noticed is that fund sponsorship, only 36 funds in this stock. Maybe that's not a big surprise since it's such a new company, but this is pretty light on the fund ownership front. Not a red flag, but it
Something
is
to note.
definitely a little more speculative. But very powerful breakout in a weak IPO market. I think it's worth watching.
It sure is. Let's also take a look at Penumbra, ticker PEN. This is in the medical products group, a very orderly looking double bottom base that it's setting up in. So, a good watch list name ahead of earnings next week in 6 days' time. That is 6 calendar days coming up on 4/23. This earnings report potentially that could be the catalyst here.
Yeah, earnings next week, like you said. But this is if you want to see how a stock consolidates and builds a proper base. This is a pretty good example of a good double bottom base here. Second leg down undercuts the first. You've got a very clear, identifiable pivot of 288.57, and you've got a wonderfully innovative company here. Penumbra is a medical device maker. Thrombectomy is their main business, where they use it's basically blood clot removal. So they do a lot of work with aneurysms. That's the biggest part of their business. They also do something called embolization, which is basically blocking of blood vessels to stop bleeding. So very high tech equipment here, and not huge revenue growth, but very very consistent. And we like to see that. And this is a good base. So it's going to be interesting to see what Penumbra says next week when they report. You can see the last time they reported 3 months ago, you had a nice gap above the 300 level. Then it started to give back. So we'll see how it responds to earnings. But this is a
Mhm.
company with good fundamentals and a really really interesting product mix.
Yeah. Exactly, and it looks like it peaked essentially when the S&P 500
Yeah.
peaked, trying to break out of highs earlier this year. So the fact that this base looks so orderly and you have that relative strength line going up as the market has retreated, it seems like that's the overall market is the only thing that's holding the stock down seemingly. So we'll have to see what that earnings report is like, if we can get another favorable reaction and the market tide to turn a little bit. I think that would also go a long way here.
Yeah, fairly shallow pullback. Some nice, tight trading recently. This is a pretty constructive setup. So again, it'll just have to be what the company says and what their outlook looks like. But it's been a really strong performer on the weekly chart. I mean, this is a stock that has trended very nicely in the past. So it has shown. Especially in 2022 and into 23, made a big move, and now it's trying to, come out of this really, come out of a double bottom base as part of a big, longer consolidation. So another name to watch with the relative strength line in new high ground. Fund sponsorship is very strong here as well. It's been increasing. And good fundamentals as well. Contra funds a new owner. It looks like at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah. Okay. We'll keep it on our watch list ahead of earnings next week. And speaking of double bottom bases and earnings reports, Netflix out with earnings tonight, and the initial response is favorable here, Ken. The stock up more than 4% on an earnings and revenue beat. And the company, according to our sister company, Barron's, said that they see no material change to their business outlook. Now, this is something that we pretty much expected, given that Netflix doesn't face the same tariff issues that a number of other businesses out there are going to have to grapple with this earnings season. It's pretty insulated from tariffs, and a really nice looking setup ahead of earnings. So it'll be interesting to see how the trading unfolds after hours today, and especially because for a lot of large cap tech stocks, you don't have an earnings report at night and then a holiday the
True.
following day, between the next regular trading session. That'll have to wait until Monday.
Can't believe that the volume is all that heavy in the aftermarket or extended trading, but it is making a pretty sizable percentage gain here. So this is looks like it's going to gap up over the 1,000 level. But like you said, the market's closed Monday, so today's after
Friday,
hours.
tomorrow.
Yeah, right. And today's after hour session, I believe it doesn't end until probably 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 Pacific, I want to say. And then no trading tomorrow. So we'll see how it opens Monday. But this is, hey, good mega cap tech stock that looks like the numbers are pretty good. So who knows? Maybe we get some decent
Yeah.
earnings reports like Netflix, and maybe that's what puts us into a little tradable rally here.
Would love to see a breakout here for Netflix above 1,000 on Monday, and for that breakout to hold. We want to see a good close, ideally, on the day. And then we'll have to see if it can follow up from there. But it's definitely at the top of my watch list, Ken.
Yeah, and look at over the past couple of weeks. When it came down to its 200-day moving average. Look at the volume as it rose off its lows. Definitely some signs of accumulation, including today. So that was good to see. Anytime you see a stock start to rally, you'd like to see some volume, some conviction behind the buying. So good
Pretty
setup
bullish.
ahead of earnings, and looks like we could get a nice breakout here.
Okay, one to watch on Monday. All right. Well, that is it from us for today and for this week, everyone. And thank you, Ken. We appreciate your insight as always.
All right, enjoy.
You too. Hope everyone has a great 3-day weekend. As a reminder, the market is closed on Friday for the Good Friday holiday. So that means no IBD Live in the morning and no stock market today, tomorrow afternoon. But we will be back on Monday morning with more content for you, starting with IBD Live 10 minutes before the opening bell. Investors.com/IBD Live for all the details on that. We will see you there. And then we'll also see you back here on Monday after the close for another trading week. See you then, and happy Easter, everyone.